Hello and welcome to Value Way of Life. This is the first in the series of Fireside Reads. And we got Lady the Doggo with us today. And we're all still decked out on Christmas time. And let's get into it. So each video in this series, each month, we're going to dive into a business book. And what's interesting about the world of business is there's no one right way to lead and be successful in business. However, as you start picking up these books, you'll realize that they're often the author's one right way that led them to be so successful. And they're so passionate and fired up about that they want everyone to be successful. And so they share that with the world. So buckle up. We're going to dive in. Turn off your social media and get reading. And if you've read this book before, please drop a comment. I'd love to hear from you, engage with you on what you thought about this book, any pros and cons, any things you agree or disagree with, either with what I'm saying or even what the author said. And so thanks for listening, and we'd love it if you hit that like button and subscribe and hit that bell for notifications so you can know when new content drops. Alright, so this month we're going to talk about EntreLeadership by Dave Ramsey, which was published in 2011. If you want to pick up a copy because you're interested, I posted a few links in the description, so feel free to check those out. Alright, here we go. So first, what is EntreLeadership? And basically, Dave Ramsey came up with this concept as he, over time in the past 20 years, he wanted to be intentional about cultivating leaders that were greater than leaders. They had an entrepreneurial spirit, and they helped to take that business to the next level with some personal skin in the game. So first, Dave starts with defining the term EntreLeadership, and he starts by deconstructing it into its two root words, leadership and entrepreneurship. So leadership, as defined in Webster's dictionary, is one who rules, guides, and inspires others. And then he goes on to define entrepreneur, which is someone who owns, operates, and assumes the risk of a venture. And so when you put those two words together, voila, you have EntreLeadership. And again, this is something where Dave, as he was intentional about cultivating those leaders, he didn't want people that simply rule, guide, and inspire as they lead a department for his company. Rather, he wanted leaders that actually felt ownership over what they were doing to a point where it did feel like almost, I don't know if I'm going to be able to put food on the table tomorrow if I'm not successful in my leadership. And so that's the mentality that Dave tries to cultivate in the leaders that he develops. And that's so important as he takes his business to the next level and where he feels comfortable being able to delegate how serious it is to run his company. And so once you finish reading this intro, you're sitting there super inspired because you just feel like he's speaking right at you and that you need to get out there and go be an EntreLeader. And so you go through the remainder of the book, and Dave, he's just gifted with the ability to storytell so well. And so the whole book is just laced with stories of business successes and, even more importantly, some of his business failures. But he really wants to show in real life where the rubber meets the road, that reality of him being intentional in cultivating the EntreLeadership culture that he's worked so hard to build over the past 20 years, and actually now 30 since this book was published. So one key takeaway that is probably going to stick with me the most from this book, and then we'll just talk about one, is from the chapter, People Matter Most. And in this chapter, Dave talks about creating a culture of loyalty and trustworthiness and unity. And he goes into more detail about 5 enemies to unity. And one of those enemies is gossip. And it was just so inspiring to read that Dave has really cultivated a culture that has zero tolerance for gossip in the workplace. It's just amazing. And so I just think, for some reason, and I'm only 26, but for some reason, the magical moment where we cross the threshold from being pathetic twerps to responsible, haughty adults, we feel that we somehow have a right to fall back into what's easy, even though we grew up generally understanding that gossip isn't a good thing. And so that really ends up purveying right into the workplace. And in my work life, there's just been a lot of gossip around me, and it's just difficult to navigate it, right? And we talk about playing politics and things like that. However, it's just refreshing to see that it's actually possible, and somebody has done it where they completely eliminate gossip from their culture. Let's talk about strengths. So, I think the number one thing is this book does a great job of both theory but also practice. So it's not just highfalutin, this is ideally what would happen. It's actually applicable to real life. And so Dave, again, he has a great gift of communication, and so he's so good at weaving stories of examples of basically his theories and how they truly do meet reality and what the outcomes are. And he's very good at keeping you engaged as the reader. And so as a reader, even if some of that isn't necessarily applicable now in my career as the reader, it helps develop a mindset that can take forward as the likely low status quo around me can be challenged. Weaknesses of this book. And first, I want to give you a disclaimer about weaknesses and book reviews. This is a book that is actually published. Therefore, it's professionally considered a good book. It was good enough to actually print it. And so I think of it similar to my next Netflix outing. So if I find something and I watch it and I say, oh man, that was like subpar, I wish I could get my time back. You can't. So just read another book if you didn't like this one, and it'll probably speak to you in a different way. Similar to what I said earlier, there's no one right way to conduct business. Well, when you're looking through business books, not everything is going to connect with you. So that's the disclaimer on weaknesses. But now I'll say one weakness of this is I think for some people who are looking for really high-level intellectual, show me the data type styles for proving success in business, this isn't going to be the book for you. And if this is for a lot of you, this probably isn't your first introduction to Dave Ramsey, but if it is, Dave Ramsey is very cut and dry, straight shooter, straight to the point. And so this book is no exception to that. And so if you're looking for data, if you're looking for really in-depth theoretical analyses of these concepts, this is not the book for you. Second potential weakness of this book is that while Dave does a good job of making this clear, some of the takeaways may not be so directly applicable to your context of your career right now. And what I mean by that is, for example, say you're a middle manager in a department, and as you read this book, you really got fired up, affirming that you realize that the compensation structure that you have as you try to find good talent just is not going to bring in good talent. And so you fight tooth and nail with all of leadership trying to come up with a better compensation plan, but you realize you're one of 5,000 employees and a middle manager of something that the CEO isn't that attentive to. And so you don't end up influencing a better compensation plan, and that can be discouraging. However, like I said before, I think Dave Ramsey does a good job of explaining that context, and it will still give you a great mindset towards what could be better and the steps that you can take to maybe influence it in that direction. If you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. As you can see, Lady didn't make it. We hope that she will next time. And so please hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you can be notified next time we do a book review and for additional content on the Value Way of Life channel. And importantly, I want to hear from you. What do you think about this book? Pick up a copy in the description below and let me know, what do you think? Because I don't really want my word to be the last word or the only word. So let's talk it out. I want to hear from you. Thanks again for watching. Bye.